Welcome back, everybody, up to Dr. Bob Lee for 107.5 WBLS and BronxNet's Channel 67. And we have a fantastic show going on for you. And our next guest is a pediatric medicine specialist and the chief medical officer at the Children's Village. And she's here today to speak about the latest news on COVID variants and how that might impact our children. So please welcome to the show, Dr. Traci Gardner. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
I've heard a lot about you. We have a lot in common. And they said you're doing some great things at the Children's Village, but please tell us about your experience working during the, during the heart of the pandemic. And it's been rough for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, when the pandemic first started, as most of you know, there wasn't a lot of information on what to do, right? Especially in child welfare settings. So we really had to figure out how to keep children who lived on our residential campus and the staff safe. Children's Village has 1,500 employees. So we have children that not only on our residential campus, but we have children in foster families, and we wanted to make sure everyone was safe. So one of the things that we ultimately did was create a policy around, which we called family clusters. And we made sure that all of the cottages, it's sort of set up in cottages, that the cottages became family clusters, just like everyone else did at home, and to mitigate any spread of the disease. And we were pretty successful with that. And I ultimately shared that with other child welfare communities throughout the nation and various other states.
So what should parents know about the impact of the latest COVID variants on their children?
I think there's a lot of information out there, and I think sometimes it can be confusing because it's in media snippets, right? So I think it can be tricky, and I think the first thing is to understand that a variant is just the virus's ability to mutate into something a little bit different than its original form. Yeah. And so I think Omicron, the newest variant, the first one was Alpha, Beta, they're all in the Greek alphabet. Omicron appeared to be a little bit milder to folks, but a lot more contagious, which is why even those who were vaccinated still got were still able to contract it, although they still did not, most of them did not, if not all of them, did not end up in hospitalizations or in ICUs or death. So from that perspective, the vaccine was still was very effective. But I think that people are they're unsure about where we go from here with other variants, and I think the virus is the one who gets to control that.
Yeah. What causes the different variants? People who are unvaccinated, or it just developing in people over and over again? Because some people had it 3 and 4 times already.
Yeah, so great question. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. So it is primarily in unvaccinated, because vaccinated folks have antibodies, and then some who might have some antibodies because they've had it recently, right? Yeah. And so the vaccinated person, the moment you get exposed to a variant, your antibodies kick in about the second or third day. So it doesn't allow the virus to replicate into another variant.
Oh, they're calling. They want to talk to you now.
Right? But the unvaccinated, no problem. But the unvaccinated, they may not have antibodies, right? So what happens is that the virus is allowed to go through its full replication cycle, right? Because theirs doesn't kick in, their body doesn't rev up and kick in antibodies until it makes them, which is 10 to 14 days later. So the unvaccinated end up being the primary source for variants.
Yeah, and but you guys still have about 2,000 people a day dying in the country.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And my colleagues that are in pediatric ICUs, my colleagues that are in adult ICUs, they tell me that the people that they have in their intensive care units are unvaccinated folks. And I personally know someone who was unvaccinated and who recently passed away, and they ended up in ICU.
What do you tell people who are well, unvaccinated and just don't want to trust it. I don't want to put that in my body. I don't know what it is.
You know what? The first thing I do is tell them to talk to somebody they trust, right? And I mean that someone a medical professional, and specifically someone that they know sort of has a handle on it. And I always make myself available to, because there are people out there who want you to understand why it's important to get a vaccine, but you have to meet people where they are, and everybody has a different reason for why they don't want to take the vaccine. So I find that when I meet people where they are, I can get a better understanding of why they're saying no. Yeah.
What advice would you have for school officials, teachers, parents regarding health and safety for their children?
I think right now, and I think there's a lot of controversy about this because of what states coming out with saying that they're going to remove the mask mandates. And I think people need to understand, and again, this is part of like not being fully, I don't want to say transparent, but giving people the full scope of your thinking, right? So the reason why they're pulling back on the mask mandate is because they're saying, we don't think that the government needs to control this anymore, right? We don't need the government's hand on it, but that we feel that we've been in this for 2 years and people can govern themselves accordingly, and they understand that masks work. So the government doesn't have to mandate it. However, that doesn't mean that in places where you have people in close contact, that they still can get COVID, and we're still in the midst of this, even though right now we're in a lull. So I think people should still, and when they're going to school or in close spaces, they should still wear masks, social distance when possible, and hand wash, of course.
Yeah, because Delta's still out there also.
Yes, Delta's still out there.
Exactly. About Delta.
Right. Yeah, Delta's still out there. Right. We forget, right? Like Delta didn't decide to move away while Omicron was coming, right? That's not what happened. Like Delta's still here, Omicron is still here. And then there's a sub variant of Omicron as well that is currently out there. It didn't fully change into something different. So we're still Omicron, but it's a little like it's a sub variant of Omicron. And so, yeah, they're all still out there. And you know, we are not going to fully get to where we need to be unless
this may be a situation where it's endemic instead of a pandemic. It's going to be with us for a while, right?
Yeah. I don't think, you know, I think, you know, my feeling is that it may not ever like fully go away. I think there was a window where in the beginning, well, here, let me say this. The window was when we first heard about this, right? In December of 2019, January, and what have you, and to activate the Defense Production Act, where we would have done what we needed to do so that it never got here in the first place, like Ebola, and SARS and MERS and all those other coronaviruses. That didn't happen. Then we needed, once we had the vaccine, we needed large numbers of people to take it. And I think because of some of the polarization around it and some of the misinformation, that didn't happen. And so the virus will have to mutate into something that is so weak that it becomes that people aren't dying from it at the rate that they are. Yeah, like a cold, right? Yeah, that'll have to happen.
So you work at this wonderful location. I know a lot about it. I have some experience with it. Tell us about the wonderful work that you're doing at Children's Village.
So I became the medical director and chief medical officer of Children's Village in 2019. Thank you. Thank you so much. And part of that work, representation matters. So I'm grateful to be able to be the first woman and the first person of color to hold this role. As you know, most of the children who are in foster care are children who are children of color, brown and Black children. And so I think one of the things that we wanted to do is to make sure that they get the medical care that everyone else gets. I owned a practice for 15 years, and my practice is in Westchester County. Our children deserve the same kind of care that I was giving people who were in Chappaqua and Thornwood and all these other places, as they should get the same care that I was giving them. So I think that is the mission, that's the culture that we should, because they're more vulnerable, right? And so because they're more vulnerable, they need special care, and we also need to really focus on the trauma of being away from your family. And so, there's nothing normal about being in child welfare, but children adjust. They're amazingly resilient, but we do have to build the structures around them. And I think we really work hard. We have a great group and a great mission, and we work really hard to do that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Traci Gardner. Thank you for all the work that you're doing at Children's Village and in our community. We love you. We appreciate you, and you're always welcome back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Give us where can we go to get more information on you and Children's Village?
You can go to the Children's Village website, and that's you can just put in the Children's Village. It'll come up. It's childrensvillage.org. My email is tgardner@childrensvillage.org. There's an S between children and village. I do have an Instagram. Dr. Traci G, Traci G.
Traci G. Sounds like a radio talk.
You know, right? It does, doesn't it? Right? Yep. And you can always email me or contact us at Children's Village. And I'm here and available.
Thank you so much. Dr. Traci Gardner, Chief Medical Officer, the Children's Village. We'll take a break. I've got more coming up next on Open.